Hello everybody. We're going to get started now. Thank you for joining the InduSoft webinar series that we've been putting on. We hope you appreciate it. It looks like we've got some good attendance today. This webinar will be covering the InduSoft Web Studio version 7.1 use of ActiveX and .NET controls and how you can use them inside of your application and gain some extensibility within InduSoft Web Studio. So as we get started here, let me mention first of all that though you may see on the WebEx somebody named Fabio Terrazino, I am not Fabio. My name is Scott Courtier. I'm the Marketing Communications Manager with InduSoft. And I'd also like to take this time to say that you will be sent a follow-up survey. If you fill that out, you can get a free t-shirt just for attending. And it's a pretty simple survey, so we ask that you fill that out and we'll send you off a t-shirt. We'd also like any feedback that you can give us on our webinar series and any suggestions that you have for future ones, and ideas and comments and feedback is always greatly appreciated. So today in this webinar we are going to cover just what are ActiveX and .NET controls. We'll get into a demonstration on how to register ActiveX controls, how to insert ActiveX or .NET controls into your project, how to interact with them. There are several different ways to interact with them on your screens, and what some of the benefits are, and even some third-party type ActiveX and .NET objects that you can use. So let's go ahead and get started. So let me start by opening up InduSoft Web Studio here. Now I've taken the time and created a quick application that will already have a screen made. I have an exit button on there just to be convenient, and I've also colored the background just so we can see where these shapes are placed, make it a little bit easier to stand out. As we get started, I wanted to place just a very simple ActiveX control on this screen, and then we'll talk about what are ActiveX and .NET. So up here in the upper corner, we can see on the Graphics tab, once we're on our screen, that in the Libraries group you can find ActiveX and .NET control selections. We're going to select ActiveX. Now ActiveX controls, unlike .NET controls, need to be registered on the computer that you're going to use them on. We'll talk about the registration process in a moment, but I'm going to scroll down here and look for the Microsoft slider control version 6. And once I click on OK, you will see that slider control placed on the screen. So what is this? This is an ActiveX object that was, or an ActiveX control that was created by, in this case, Microsoft, a third party to InduSoft. So my point is that this was not created by InduSoft. This is an externally created object that we've got a connection to from the ActiveX standard. So what does that mean? Let's open up the help system here and dive into the screens and graphics using objects and talking about the libraries. And we will scroll down to kind of the definition here. ActiveX controls are components designed according to a standard. Now Microsoft developed this standard. You may have seen occasionally if you're opening up your Internet Explorer web browser that something is trying to install an ActiveX component and it asks for your permission. It's very similar here. In fact, ActiveX controls that are used on web pages can in fact be used within InduSoft Web Studio. You can think of ActiveX and .NET controls, for that matter, as almost mini programs or applications that we can interface with using this standard. Because they're built or compiled on the ActiveX standard or the .NET standard, and we are a container for those objects, we can interface to them. And how do we interface to them? Well, we have three different interfaces that are exposed by ActiveX and .NET controls. There are properties, which are variables whose values can be read and or written from your project. So typically they are things that are maybe designed more or changed more during a design time. So like the color of the object, the size of the object, the number of ticks. We'll get into that when we talk about the scale on this slider in a moment. But they also can be changed and or read during the runtime of your project as well. There's something also called methods. Now I mentioned that ActiveX and .NET controls are almost like mini programs or mini applications. When we trigger a method within an ActiveX object or a .NET object, it's almost like calling a subroutine or a function within that object. It tells that object to do whatever that thing is, whatever that method is, and then when we want to, we can activate various functions or various methods within that particular object. We'll give some examples of these. And the third way that we can interface to ActiveX or .NET controls are via these things called events. Now, events are messages that we get back knowing that something has happened within that ActiveX or .NET. So, for example, somebody has clicked on something or a download has completed, something that has happened on that or to that ActiveX or .NET, we get information back that that event has happened, and then we can react to that. So there are 2 or 3 methods to interacting with ActiveX or .NET. The first two here are ActiveX functions that also work with .NET called XGet, XSet, and XRun, and we'll cover those functions. Another way is to go right into the object properties and go through the configuration and put tag names right into the properties, methods, and events. And those work both for ActiveX objects or .NET objects as well. There is a third way to do this, and I would call this programmatically through VBScript by using the COM interface, which is a component object model. It is communication standard built into Windows, and if you remember the idea or the technology that maybe we had a while ago, a long time ago, where you could copy an Excel spreadsheet and paste it into a Word document, and if you went back into the Excel spreadsheet and made changes, the Word document would update. Well, that is all handled through COM, or what was known as OLE, or Object Linking and Embedding. So it's a similar type of communications that's happening in the background that allows us to use VBScript, allows us to use the name of the object and the property, the method, or the event, and interact with the ActiveX object. You cannot use that way currently with .NET controls because those use a .NET type of communications as opposed to the COM communications. So that describes a little bit about the ActiveX. Real quick on the .NET, very similar. .NET components are part of the .NET framework. So when a lot of people reference or use the term .NET, they may or may not be speaking specifically about components that can be used on one of our screens. They may be talking about .NET. Is .NET installed is usually referring to the framework as opposed to a component that might be placed on our screen. Very similar to ActiveX, or exactly similar. You can interact with properties, methods, and events, and we'll show you all of those. So there are also a few things to notice when you're looking at the properties, the actions and the scan, and how those are interacted. We're not going to cover those in a lot of detail here, but it's whether or not it is scanned or interacted with to read or write or both bidirectional. So pay attention to how those are used, and if something's not working properly, you may want to dive into those a little bit deeper. I'm going to close the help here, and now what I'm going to do, let's go and configure something really quick with this slider control that I brought in. So this is the ActiveX Microsoft slider control, and again, this is a third-party control not created by InduSoft. What I'm going to do to interact with that is open up our symbol library, and I'm going to place one of our sliders on this screen. Now our symbol library, if you didn't know that it existed, has quite a few different symbols in it, and these were created within InduSoft Web Studio, and these are not ActiveX or .NET objects. These were created either using graphics or with our built-in native objects. So these can be used to complement your screens. If you can find something within InduSoft Web Studio symbol library, you can use that for your application. If you can't, then it might be time to go out and look for an ActiveX or .NET object. So I'm going to place this slider here on the screen, and I'm going to create a new tag called V1 for value 1, and because I don't have that yet, it's going to prompt me to create a brand new tag name. I will leave that as an integer and say OK. So now this slider will, once I slide that up and down, will create a value or change a value in the tag v1 between 0 and 100. So how can we use that within the slider up here? So let's go configure the slider. The slider control you can see is an ActiveX control, and it has a name associated with this. Every time we place or you place an ActiveX or a .NET control on the screen, it will try to give it a unique name. And that name, again, needs to be unique. That's how we can tell between copies of the same type of object and how we can interact with one versus the other. You can change this name. In fact, I'm going to do that here. I'm going to abbreviate this name. Instead of Microsoft Slider Control, I'm just going to call this MSC1. You don't need to change it, but it's just going to make it a little bit easier for me to type later on. Now, here in the properties pages, we can see some of the properties, not necessarily all of them. It just depends on what the developer of that particular object decided to expose to us. So here we can see min and max. We can see appearance things, orientation, the tick style. So I know that this slider that we placed from our symbol library is going to give us a value between 0 and 100. So I'm going to change that. But before I do, I just know from experience that this, the appearance of this, the tick frequency or this scale right now is set to 1. And when it has value from 0 to 10, we get 10 different little tick marks on there. But if I change that to 100 as the maximum and hit apply, we can see that we get 100 little tick marks down there for the scale. And that's more than we can really use. So let's go back in and change that appearance to maybe 25 and hit apply. And now that's something a little bit more usable. So that is some general ideas of how we can interact with properties. Now, within the configuration button here, we can also get at the properties. You can see min and max, and down here would be number of ticks, things of that nature, tick frequency. So we could actually put numbers in here or tags in here, and they would do the same thing as that previous menu that I was on. But we can also get into methods. You can see here this particular object, this particular ActiveX slider control only has 4 different methods that we can interact with. Later on, I will show you that some of the other objects will have many, many more. And again, it just depends on how the developer compiled that and what they wanted to expose as an interface to you or to ActiveX. The other thing here is events, and you can see here is click, key up, key down, mouse down. You can also get at some other things depending, again, on what the developer chose to expose to you. So how do we configure this to work with our tag v1? Down here at the bottom is the property called value. We are just going to either type right in there, but in a larger application where you might have tag names that are very descriptive, instead of typing, it would probably be better to pull up the object finder that we have and choose from the list of tag names. In this case, I only have one tag in the application so far, so we're going to choose that. Also, I'm going to change this default to scan instead of no. I'm going to change this to always, so it updates bidirectionally here. We can read that. And at this point, that's really all I have to do to get this to interact with the tag v1. So let's go ahead and give this a try. We'll go ahead and run this. And what we can see here is I can slide the slider, which is changing the value of v1. Then v1 is being read by this slider control and being updated. Or I can go the other way and drag the little handle on the ActiveX. It will change v1 and then change the built-in symbol. So you can see that we can interact with that. There's a nice little tooltip that floats up there, and you can see the value on that. So that's the quick and easy way to interface with an ActiveX object. Let's go talk real quick about the registration. So ActiveX objects must be registered on the PC that you're using them on, and there's typically about 3 different ways to do 3 or 4 different ways to do this. Most ActiveX objects and .NET objects, ActiveX objects have an installer nowadays with them. So if you run their install program, they will not only install and copy the ActiveX files where they need to be, but register them on the PC. Back a while ago, and in some cases the individual files are just supplied, and you would need to manually install, manually register using the regserver32 command. So that can be done. Let me give you an example here. If I go out to the command prompt and just type in regserver32, now I'm not going to put any name of a file in there, so this is just going to bring up the little help that pops up with this. Now what this shows me is that I can register ActiveX DLLs, or in fact most of them are often a file extension of OCX for ActiveX's. So when we use this, we can come in here to the command prompt and manually type in regserver32, give it the path, the file name, and when we hit OK or hit enter, it will typically respond with register succeeded. If for whatever reason you need to exchange your ActiveX that you've installed with another version or another brand, or you're not sure exactly how things are working, there is an uninstall that you can use the regserver32 with the file name and a /u option, and it will unregister that from your particular PC. This is good to know in case you have some interaction with different versions and you want to try some things and update some things. You can make sure and confirm that an older version is uninstalled before you install a newer version. So what's another way that we can do this? We have a built-in tool within InduSoft Web Studio that will allow you to do this. Right from the Home tab up here, we can click on Register Controls, and on Register Controls you can see here there's a Register button that will allow you to point to either the DLL or the OCX file name. Then you would click on Open, and then it would register that particular ActiveX object on your PC. All this time I've been talking about registration. The ActiveX objects need to be registered. The .NET controls do not need to be registered. So they interact slightly differently that way, but just so you're aware that when you are using ActiveX, if you're using an embedded PC or a remote PC for that matter, even Windows CE, if you are using an ActiveX object, the same ActiveX object with the same name has to be installed on the other PC or the embedded PC or the Windows CE computer of that same name and registered and available for that particular hardware before this will work. So just because it works in your development environment or on your laptop does not mean that it will work on the remote PC unless you have the right thing registered, the right thing available for the operating system that you've chosen. So check into that before you go too far with your application, and make sure that it works with the particular hardware and operating system versions that you've chosen. So let's see, back to the demonstration here a little bit. Let's go here into, okay, so I've already chosen the ActiveX control off of the ribbon toolbar. Very shortly here I will do the .NET. But as we get into this, I want to show you, already we've done tags. Let's use a different way to interface with that particular slider control. We'll go back to this, and let's say that there was a particular set point that you wanted to choose very quickly. Rather than sliding the slider and honing right in on a particular value, what you might want to do is place a button or some other object that we can put a command animation onto and put a value straight in here. Now I'm just going to put the caption on here, which is text only and it doesn't do anything, but then I'm going to apply the command animation to this, and I'm going to interact with this via the xget, xset, or xrun command. So what I'm going to do is, instead of using VBScript at this point, I'm going to use the built-in language, and here I'm going to choose the XSet command, and this is the built-in function in InduSoft Web Studio built-in scripting language, and the what we're going to do is reference the name of that object first inside of quotes. So it's Microsoft Slider Control 1 and close quote. If I don't use quotes in there, I can use a tag name in there and vary which control I want to talk to. So I can use maybe one button to talk to multiple of those sliders just based on changing the tag name of which named object I'm going to be using. The next thing is I want to point to the property of that, so I'm going to put a comma, and then this will be the value property. Close the quotes, and what value do I want to put in there? Another comma, and then I'm going to put a 50 in there, and close the parenthesis, and that's the format for that XSet command. We can take a look at that here in the help system. We can go right into the built-in scripting language, ActiveX and .NET control functions, XSet. You can see we set the value of a property, and here's the syntax for that. It's even some examples down here at the bottom. So that's how we're doing that, with the name of the object, the property, and then the value we want that to be set to. So that's what we just got through doing. And now when we try to run this, if we slide the slider and position it at a value that's not 50, then we click on that button, it will jump right to 50 immediately. So that's one way that you can use that. So there are a couple of different ways that we just showed to you. So either the tags built right in, or using the built-in scripting XSet command. There is another way that we'll do, but I'm going to show you another object first. So what we're going to do now is go back to the ActiveX drop down here and choose Microsoft Web Browser. If you don't know, but this is Internet Explorer. It is actually an ActiveX object. There's also a .NET version of this as well. So we are going to enlarge this just a little bit, and we can open up the properties. Now this particular object does not have the design time properties pages in common with InduSoft Web Studio, so there's nothing to see there. That's normal behavior, but we can get at the properties through this configuration. So here's the properties, the methods, and the events. Now if you remember on the slider control, I only had 4 different methods that I could access. You can see there, here's quite a few more. So under properties, you can choose whether or not you want to see the address bar, the height, the width, so on and so forth. We are going to configure this to go to a web page, and in here in the navigate method, what we're going to do is add a tag, and we're going to call this URL tag, so that we can type in the URL that we want to go to. Now I have not created that tag yet, so at this point we can just choose this as a string tag, and then we need to be able to trigger that. If you're familiar with the top of your web browser, you can type in the address bar and then click on the little arrow or the word go and trigger that to kick off that URL. So we're going to make this go tag and be able to toggle that, and since that just needs to toggle, we're going to create this as a Boolean tag and just toggle between those two. So that's all we need in the navigate method. Notice down here that there's a navigate to method. We're going to use that in a little while. So here, now I need a way to type in that URL. So here under the active objects, we're going to place a piece of text up here, and I'm going to put in some pound signs that will allow me to enter the URL. And above this, what I will probably do is put a border on here so I can easily find that when there's no characters in there. It'll show me a border around that. And I'm going to apply a text data link animation. Now I can do it from here, or I can also go up to here. Once I have that object selected, I can apply a text data link animation. But in recent versions of InduSoft Web Studio, we've made it very convenient to just click on here, and it's applied that text data link animation as well as left you right on that particular object property. So in here, I want URL tag, and very critical for this, I need input enabled. Click on OK there, and that will allow us to type in a URL like it's an address bar up there. So we've kind of made our own address bar at this point. Now I need a way to toggle the go tag. So what I will do here is put a button on the screen, change this text to go, and very similar to the convenient way that we applied the text data link animation on a button, we can put the command animation, which is the same thing as clicking on up here. It conveniently applies the command animation and then puts you right into the properties for that. So here what we're going to do is, instead of choosing the built-in language, conveniently we have toggle tag in here, and just to make sure that I don't mistype this, I'm going to pull this from our object finder as the go tag, and that will toggle that. If it's a 1, it will make it a 0. If it's a 0, it'll make it a 1, and that will trigger this ActiveX web browser to go to that particular web page. So I think that's all we need. Let's go ahead and run this, give this a try. And in here we can type in www.indusoft.com, and I hit enter, but that didn't do anything. I need to click on the go tag to trigger that, and this goes to the InduSoft website. So hopefully you've been there and seen this. If you haven't, I encourage you to go check out some of the upcoming events and webinars that we have, and our video training series that we have, as well as our case studies and our different industry solutions. Sorry, there's my little advertisement for the moment. So let's go back and find a different way to interact with the web browser ActiveX Object. What I'm going to do, just to show you that I'm not using this same idea, I'm going to actually place a brand new web browser object on the screen. So I'm going to scroll down here to the Microsoft web browser and place another one over here and size this up a little bit, and we'll make this one even a little bit larger than the other one. And in a similar fashion, let's say if you were using this in a real industrial environment or any environment, you might not want the user to have the ability to type in just any address that they want. You might not want them checking their Gmail or going to other websites where there might be spam or other viruses associated. So what you might want to do is limit the actual pages. Now another thing to notice too is that you don't need to go out to the actual real-world internet. You can point to internal HTML files that could be help system files, they could be training files, things of that nature. But I'm just going to give you another example with the InduSoft website here. So I'm going to put the button on here. We're going to change the caption to be InduSoft and add the command animation on here. Now this time what we're going to do is use VB script. As I mentioned, we can programmatically communicate with this thing using the COM interface. So before I do that, I'm going to go change this name because this is just a little bit too long for me to type. So I'm going to abbreviate Microsoft Web Browser to as just MWB2. So now what I'll do is go back to this button, and here in the VB script interface, if I type MWB2, it already knows to go look for that object with that name, and when I type a dot, it goes and queries that object and exposes to me what properties, methods, and events are available. In this case, what I'm going to do is choose the Navigate To field. If you remember prior in the method we had Navigate, this particular object interfaces with the Navigate To field or method. One of the things that is good to note is you should always check the documentation from the developer of the particular ActiveX or .NET object that you are using. This particular one is a Microsoft object. You can find on the Microsoft website the documentation for these particular objects. If you get an ActiveX or a .NET object from some other third party, they should supply you with documentation for that. If not, then you need to ask for that, or how does it work. Anyway, good suggestion that you really need to make sure that you get the documentation for an ActiveX or .NET control or library. So we're going to choose the Navigate To method, and in here then I put a parenthesis, and you can see the IntelliSense pop-up that we have built in. It says that the Navigate To has these 4 or 5 different parameters: the URL, flags, target frame name, so on and so forth. And again, those are available in the documentation. In this case, available from Microsoft. It would be available from the developer, whoever developed that. For this particular one, I'm only going to put in the URL. In this case, I'm going to put it inside of double quotes, www.indusoft.com, close double quote, close parenthesis, and that will go to that particular URL. So let's give this a try, see if this works. Go ahead and click Run, and now when we click on the InduSoft button, it should go right to the InduSoft website. So again, you can size that accordingly. Now, let's use that same technique for another idea. Let's go back to our development environment. And as I mentioned, you might use some internal files. They don't have to be on the internet. So because they can be just any HTML file, let's find a different way to do this. Or another use for this, I should say. Let's put another button down here, and let's say that we wanted to display a manual. In fact, let me make this just a little bit larger here. And let's say that I wanted to read our Modbus Ethernet manual, our MOTCP PDF manual that we have. In here, I'm going to use that same configuration that I used on this button, which is the name of the object, the Navigate To field. But instead of pointing to a web URL address, I'm just going to point it to a PDF file. So where can I find that file? I'm going to go here to where InduSoft is installed under Program Files, InduSoft Web Studio version 7.1 in the DRV folder. And in here, if we scroll down far enough, will be the motcp.pdf. I'm going to cheat just a little bit and grab this path. Now, I would not recommend using this explicit path in an application. I would recommend building this or concatenating this out of other methods so that it is transparent or can be moved. If the application moves to another computer, it will be able to find where that file is based on either get app path or get where the program was installed, where InduSoft was installed. So in this case, back here on the MOTCP, we're going to call this again Microsoft Web Browser 2 dot. We want the Navigate To field again, and then parenthesis, and then inside of quotes, we're going to paste that. And then I need to, at the end here, add motcp.pdf. Close the quote, close the parenthesis. Now when we run this, what you will see is that the browser is smart enough to open Adobe Acrobat, and so we get the Adobe Acrobat view. Now we can zoom in here and see individual pages and read that. So you could put up machine documentation, process documentation, maybe a maintenance manual, things of that nature during your application, so that you don't have to have a paper copy of the manual or the diagrams rolled up in the bottom of the control cabinet, because they're always there and they're always in perfect shape. Why not just put them on a server and reference them electronically? So this is a good use of an ActiveX object in your application. So let's go talk a little bit about the .NET. We'll add a .NET object here on the screen. So we already have these sliders, the slider that comes with InduSoft Web Studio, and ActiveX slider. Let's interact with that a little bit. We will grab .NET control, and the first time that you open up a .NET control, because it's not registered, the system has to go search for this. Subsequent times when you open this, it will not take this long, but for now, it will go out and search my PC, and unfortunately I have quite a few of these, so it's going to go search my entire PC, and it will respond with a list of all the different .NET components that are on my PC. So this should just take a second or two more here. I'd also like to remind you, I can see a few people are submitting questions via the chat window in the Q&A. Please feel free to do that, and we'll answer those at the end. This is, admittedly, this is a little bit longer than most of the PCs that I've seen. Probably take about half of this time. My PC just happens to have a lot of these controls spread all over the place. Fairly large hard drive, so it takes just a minute here. Apologize for the delay, but again, subsequent uses of this will not take this long. So let's see if I can answer any of these questions or take a look at these questions. There's the response. Looks like we have a couple of good questions. I couldn't read through them all right away, but let's go back to the .NET. So you can see here that the .NET objects within my PC. I have quite a few of these here. I'm going to scroll down to something that's included with most Windows PCs, if not all, called the progress bar. You'll recognize this in a moment. So again, I'm going to choose progress bar, place this on this screen, and in this case I'm going to lengthen it out just a little bit so we can see it a little bit better. And this progress bar has also properties. Now remember, this is a .NET, whereas the other objects that I was pulling up had properties that looked a little bit different. Now the ActiveX properties look a little bit different than the .NET properties. They're just a little bit different interface. The same type of information, but just a different interface is exposed to you. So here you can change various things within here, the size, the minimums, the maximums, things of that nature. So I'm going to close this and then open up this members button here. And you can see very similar, just exactly alike with the ActiveX. There's properties, methods, and events. So the methods here, you can see there's quite a large list of methods that we can get at, and events. Again, we can get at things like click and drag, enter. So a lot of different things within there. So I want to go back to properties here. This progress bar, all the way down here at the bottom, is value. Excuse me. Be careful not to put your tag name or a value in the visible column. The first time that I did this, I accidentally put it in here into visible. Since it was false, the object didn't show up. I couldn't figure out why. So instead of doing the visible column, make sure you put this in the value. I'm going to put that same tag name that I used on the slider, V1. Notice here that the scan is automatically defaulted to always, unlike the ActiveX object. So I'm going to leave that. Click on OK there. Excuse me. And that's all I have to do to get that to work. I'm going to go ahead and run that. Okay, so now that we have that running, now I can slide the slider, and you can see that progress bar changing values. Oops, excuse me, I put the WebEx control panel in the way of that. Let me move that down a little bit here. Just put it right over here somewhere. And run that. And now you can see that progress bar, and we slide the slider, and we get that. What everybody has seen on their downloads, that progress bar is pretty familiar. Expected behavior here is when I slam this slider up quickly, that progress bar goes up a little bit different pace. That's the expected behavior for that particular object. And when I bring it down quickly, it follows quickly. I'm not sure why that is in the design, but it is like that. If you were to choose a progress bar, I happen to be using Windows 7 64-bit. If you were to choose this on a different operating system, say Windows XP, the progress bar in Windows XP that you might be familiar with is the segmented little dashes within the progress bar itself. So depending on the object that you choose, you may see a little bit different look and feel. This happens to be one that's within Windows Vista and Windows 7 and some of the server editions as well. So we can interact with any of those. Again, the interfaces for .NET and ActiveX are standards, so we really don't care who developed the object. It's just the interface that we're passing the information through. Another thing to take a look at while we're on here is, let's say that we wanted to understand if somebody clicked on that progress bar. Maybe somebody was a little bit impatient and they were clicking on that and you wanted to pop up a message that said please wait, be patient. I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to instead be able to change the values over here. So if we are on this object and we take a look at the events, the different events that we can use here are quite a few. I'm going to look at the click event. So when somebody clicks on that, we can then run a script. And the script choices that we have are either a VB script or a built-in scripting language within InduSoft Web Studio. So we have two different scripting languages. If you didn't know that, please take a look at the different training videos that we have for the VB script and or the built-in scripting language. So back to interact with that slider, I'm going to choose V1 as a tag, and I'm going to set that to a value of 22. So that's if somebody clicks on it. Otherwise, it will be reading the value from v1 configured here in the properties. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and run this. So now if we slide the slider, and right now we have a value of 68 in there, if we click on this, it goes right to 22, and that's a way that we got that event back from the object itself. We knew that somebody had clicked on that, and we got the response back from the object that that event happened, which triggered the script to then write the 22 back into v1. So that's how we can interact with those three different ways with properties, methods, and events. If we go back into here, we did it the first way with the tag v1. We put that right into the object and interacted with that with the VB script, where we gave it the name dot the navigate to property. The navigate to method, and then finally with the progress bar, which we did with the built-in functions, and I did not do the xget set and run, but I did that with the other objects. So we can see those three different ways. A question that came up in this morning's sessions: do you really need the xget, xset, and xrun? Yes, because the com, or within the VB script where you use the object name dot the property method or event, only works with ActiveX objects, does not work with .NET, because that's using the com interface as opposed to the .NET interface. So why would you want to use this? Now, InduSoft Web Studio has a lot of features built into it, and you can do just about anything with it. But this allows you to have the flexibility and add extensibility to within your project. So, for example, what if the functionality that you need is not available from native InduSoft objects and shapes? You can go out and search to find third-party ActiveX controls or .NET controls that, because we are a container, you could put into your project. Again, those are third-party tools, and they are often sold by third-party companies, but it does allow you to do things like put gauges. We have some gauges in our product in the symbol libraries, but if you want some different gauges, you can do those. I've seen charting controls. I've even seen configurations for vision systems via ActiveX. So those are a few different ways that you can use those, but it allows you to extend the capability of InduSoft Web Studio and get exactly the functionality that you're looking for. So what's an example? For example, Symbol Factory, put out by Software Toolbox. We actually have Software Toolbox's Symbol Factory available for sale on the InduSoft website. If we take a look here at the InduSoft website, let me bring this here into play. Have this off screen and grab this. Here's the InduSoft website. If we go to products and go to the third-party store, you will see that you can download the Symbol Factory Classic, the ActiveX version, or the .NET version, or even what they have as the factory widgets. So those are available for purchase. They are separate external products available that can be used and interacted with, as we just showed in InduSoft Web Studio. Let me give you an example. Let's go back into InduSoft Web Studio here and choose ActiveX again. Now I'm going to scroll down in the list until I come to the the Symbol Factory standard controls. Now I don't have the full version installed, I just have the demo version, and the demo version only allows me to get at the first symbol within the individual libraries. So let me show you what I mean by that. If I click on the properties pages, it will show me that I have this pump here. Now I can't get at any of these other ones because I only have the demo version, but I can get at the style, so we can see the fill color, blinking, and change some of those properties. How it animates, so at particular values we see red blinking, yellow. If it's normal, it will show normal. So we can get at each one of those. But just to show you some of the different libraries that they have, it's a pretty extensive library, some good looking symbols. If you don't want to take the time to hand create those, go take a look at their demo and possibly use that within your InduSoft Web Studio application. So this is the properties. Notice here that the properties, methods, and events look similar to the other things that I had placed on the screen. and should be fairly easy for you to configure those up. And let's see. At this point, I think that's all I wanted to show you as far as the demonstration goes, so I'm going to open it up to questions, and it looks like there's a couple in here. One of the questions is, how do I use .NET controls that I create myself? I created a graph control in .NET 3.5. Do I need to register it, and how do I distribute the .NET control in the final solution? I don't exactly know those answers. I'm personally not a developer, but I do know that when you compile it and you choose to expose that as a .NET control, that it will make it available in the right format. Where you put that and how you do that, I personally don't know. Looks like I have your name and contact information, so we will. I'll find out the answer and then get back with you on that. So next question. Let's see. Sometimes a .NET needs a non-basic type as an input parameter. How should we create this? Sorry, again, not a developer, but it's the same question. There's a question from the same person, so I will dig into the answers and see what I can find. Let's see. Those are the only questions that I have currently, so if there's other questions, please feel free to type those into either the chat window or into the Q&A panel as well. And again, please don't forget to, once you see that survey come back from us here in the next day or so, fill that survey out and we'll be able to send you off your t-shirt for attending. And thank you for attending the different webinars that we've had. Hopefully you've enjoyed these and they've been useful. And don't forget also that we will be posting the presentation and a copy of this video not only on our website but on YouTube as well. One more question here is, how can we employ a Listbox object to display class tag with its members and even more? I need to know how we can edit the select member in the runtime. This member has all the different names, so okay. So what I think they're asking for is how they can employ a Listbox object with a class tag. Let's see. Listbox object. I know what the object is, but I'm not sure that I have all the answers for that one, especially coming from a class tag. Now the object would be something similar to this, and in the fact, not the object itself wouldn't be similar, but the fact that you could put in a class tag in here, but I don't know how you would configure changing the different members during runtime. So it might be easier if you use the list box that we have built into the product. So we have a Listbox object that's built in, because you can use this Listbox object with any number of messages that you can configure. So that might be another way around that if you don't want to or don't have to use an external Listbox object. But I'm sorry to say that I don't know the exact answer to that, but we will give it a try to see if we can't find the answer and then get you the right answer after this. Another question that has come in: does the usage of tags limit the capabilities of .NET controls? Limit in such a way that you need to put tag names in the object if you want to interact with these fields here. You can use xget, xset, and xrun to manipulate that without using tags, although you do have that option. So you will use tags to some degree, but does it limit the capability? I don't think so, because it's fairly flexible in what you can do with strings and even indirect tags for that matter. But quite frankly, InduSoft Web Studio is pretty well priced as far as the available tags go. So there's always good opportunities there. Yeah, the answer was yes, they were already using indirect tags, so thank you. So let's see. At this point, I don't see any other questions that have come in. I think I've covered them all. I would like to thank everybody for their time. We know your time is valuable. Thank you for attending these webinars. Hopefully you know that we have these webinars every other week. Typically every other week we announce them, and we appreciate your attendance and interest in InduSoft and our products. And at any time you feel the need to request either a video or a webinar on a particular topic, just let us know. You can always send us a request at info@indusoft.com or any of the other email addresses that we have, or feel free to give us a call. There's our different phone numbers. They are available on our websites as well. We have offices in the US, in Brazil, and in Germany, and distribution and partners worldwide as well. So with that, it does not look like there are any other questions, so I will sign off. And again, thank you everybody for choosing to join us here today, and thank you for your time, and have a great day.